And today we're going to explore the meaning of power. And I confess that it took me a long time thinking, and it wasn't until yesterday at 5 o'clock in the afternoon that my thoughts came together, and I was like, okay, I think I'm gonna go in this direction because so much can be said about it. So I put some pictures of people that I consider to be very powerful influences in our world. And let me just explain to you that the reason why I chose this topic, which initially was meant to be the meaning of success, but I will be speaking in Atlanta very soon in September about conquering to power, achieving to power. And so I actually, this topic and this seminar was, the content of the seminar was suggested by me. And so when I put this together, I thought, you know, what do people want from life, right? How do we raise our children? We raise our children for what? To be successful. To be successful, to thrive in this world that we live in. And so what does that mean to be successful? What do you imagine? What do you want for your child? You want a child to be beautiful because everybody says, oh, your child is so beautiful, right? You want your child to be successful professionally. Hopefully you'll have a very good career. Will have, be in some good organization, or will be someone who have a number of letters after their names in academia. So perhaps be wealthy, someone who be strong and young, hopefully forever, right? And so we, as a society, we put a lot of value into those things. So much so that, you know, aging is a very big challenge that we face because we feel that the powerful people, the young people, the people who have strength, who have energy that can produce, and we put a lot of value into those ideas. And so because it is such a strong belief and part of our culture, so a road to success, power, health, beauty, wealth, you know, how do we achieve all those things? And if you're strong, if you're young, if you're healthy, if you're beautiful, if you're wealthy, right? You have a lot of power in your hands. You have a lot of power in your hands. So when we explore this topic, we're looking at success and being successful. We tend to link that, to tie that to happiness. If you have all that, then you got it all. You're happy, right? You have everything that you need to succeed in the material world and to be victorious, and your life should be a good life. But the meaning of power going forward, we have this quote from Abraham Lincoln where he says, nearly all men can stand adversity, but if you want to test a man's character, give him power. I like this very much, okay? So let me go back to the first things that I was talking about. There's nothing wrong with them per se, okay? It's fine, and we'll talk a little bit more about it. It's fine to want to be successful. It's fine to want to be intelligent, to pursue a career, to put your best effort, to accomplish the things that Earth provides us. It's fine. There's nothing wrong with that. Now, why is it that Abraham Lincoln said something like that, right? What is the problem with power? This is the problem with power, is that power, more often than not, provides us an illusion of grandiosity. That is just that, an illusion, okay? So power, you know, power is neutral. We'll see that power is neutral. Power can be used for good and bad, right? Being wealthy, for instance, is not a bad thing. You know, just think about it. If you were sick and if you have the means, the money, you know, to pay for your private psychologist, for your private therapist, you know, to access healthcare, it does bring comfort. It does help us, financial power. And it's not, again, it's not a bad thing per se. But what happens also with power? What's the other side of power? Power gives people privileges. Power opens doors not always because of one's merit, but because of interest, right? So a lot of times when you have power, then it becomes a double sword, because it makes you feel, when you have power, the world treats you differently. And therefore, it's very easy for us to feel inflated in our egos. Power is very problematic for our humanity, because we, in essence, at this time and moment in our evolution, we extremely far away from God. We extremely far away from understanding, not cognitively, but emotionally, understanding who we are truly. We live, as Brené Brown talks very wisely, in this culture of scarcity, where we feel that we lack a lot of things. So when we have access to material power, we get so confused. And so you may think, well, that might not apply to me because I have no power. I'm not a politician. I'm not wealthy. But we all have power in our lives over other people. We all influence other people. I had this experience, and sometimes you achieve power whether you wish for that consciously or not. So when I was teaching, I will never forget the first day that I stood in front of 50, 20-year-old young people. And the moment I opened my mouth, they opened their notebooks and start writing. I was like, oh my God. You know, they're actually writing down what I'm saying. So I have this much power right now. And then as you go on teaching, they look up to you as if you live in a different planet, as if you don't belong here. So there is all these issues of idealization and projection in the spiritist movement, mediums, speakers. We have tremendous amount of power because we influence people, and people have the need to look up to people, to others, and to make them into idols. So power is a very challenging human experience. It's not a bad experience. It's a very challenging human experience for the fact that we are so disconnected from our essence, from our divine essence. So Joana de Angelis, in this book, Surrender to God, she speaks about that. She says that power grants favors and advantages, can easily fascinate humans. We become fascinated by what power brings to our lives. And a person with power holds great responsibility. And in the same chapter, the book is Surrender to God, and she has a chapter that's called The Torment of Power. And so in there, she says, the guarantee for the successful exercise of power is found in the moral structure of the individual, the capacity of discernment in order to avoid idolatry and in order to avoid competitions that corrupt the soul. Okay? So power is okay. But underneath power, on the basis of power, we have to have values that can guide the power in the right direction and that can protect us from ourselves. Okay? So I invited 3 people, very powerful people, to help me with this lecture today. So now I'm gonna ask 2 of them to speak to you about power, and they're gonna use the power of their speech to exemplify the use of power when you have a good moral structure guiding your values. So I'm going to get off here to here and to here.
We must change the ideology of being powerful, because we think that a person with guns, with money, is powerful. But we have developed this idea in our mind. And if we change it, and I think we must change it, a country with more literate and educated people a country with more skillful people, a country which has given equal rights to its citizens, should be considered the superpower, not the country with atomic bombs and millions of soldiers. This is what I believe.
In another good, powerful speech.
Permettetemi di dirlo chiaramente. Quanto più sei potente, quanto più le tue azioni hanno un impatto sulla gente, tanto più sei chiamato a essere umile. Perché altrimenti il potere ti rovina e tu rovinerai gli altri. In Argentina si diceva che il potere è come il gin presso a digiuno, ti fa girare la testa, ti fa ubriacare, ti fa perdere l'equilibrio e ti porta a fare del male a te stesso e agli altri, se non lo metti insieme all'umiltà e alla tenerezza. Come sarebbe bello se alla crescita delle innovazioni scientifiche e tecnologiche corrispondesse anche una sempre maggiore equità e inclusione sociale. Come sarebbe bello se, mentre scopriamo nuovi pianeti lontani, riscoprissimo i bisogni del fratello e della sorella che mi orbitano attorno.
This is powerful, right? I hear it and I feel moved. Every time I hear this man speaking, moves me, yes. Right? The power of speech, this is power. This is someone who is influential, but has precisely the moral values underneath, guiding power in the right direction. Okay, so let's get back to here. So both of them, each one in their way, exemplifies what Joana de Angelis proposes here, power with responsibility. Now, let's move forward and look at power in a different way. One of my struggles when I was putting this together was like, when you read the spiritualist literature, a lot of the ways in which power is addressed has to do with the fact that you know, everything that we consider powerful will go away, right? It's temporary, it's an illusion, okay? So the first thing is, what does happiness means? So we are going to look into different tools that can help us to be powerful in our lives, okay? So what does happiness means? I think most of us knows what happiness means, but what Joana tells us is that those false concepts of happiness lead human beings to behaviors that are completely opposite to the blessings that they desire. So theoretically, we know what happiness is. Can anyone define for me what happiness would be for you? When you think of happiness, what comes to mind?
To me, it's a state of spirit.
Harmony? Huh?
Harmony is just a state of your spirit.
It's a state of the spirit? Okay. All right. So how do you achieve this state?
Peace.
Peace. How do you achieve peace? It's complicated. Okay. Anyone? How do we achieve happiness and peace? Okay. Defining happiness is easy. So happiness is peace, is harmony. But the issue is, how do we get there?
Connection with God.
I'm sorry?
Your connection with God.
With the connection with God. So we're starting to see the light, right? So that's what we need to ask ourselves. Okay, I want to be peaceful and I want harmony. Am I acting in ways that are in line in the production of happiness and harmony in my life? Is my behavior mirroring my desire, or am I really going against the very same thing that I am desiring? So it's a reflection that we need to do. So are we tied up on any of these things in order to be happy? Do we believe that to be happy, I need to be young? If you're aging, are you unhappy? Are you losing happiness because you can no longer put that bikini that you used to put to go to the beach one day? Some people suffer a lot because of that, right? It seems like funny, but it's really not that funny. And it's really serious, and it's really real. And this does not apply to the people who are out there. It applies to all of us. Even with our awareness of immortality, right? A lot of times, if we don't have a certain power of purchasing, you know, financial strength, beauty, all of those things can cause suffering. So we need to stop and to think, what is happiness made of? Truly, what is happiness made of? So this just remind me that it's okay to actually strive to have all those things. I don't want to. The message is not meant to be that there is something wrong per se with these things. It's okay to enjoy them at the right time and in the right way in our lives, okay? And we're going to get back to that. So I think one of the greatest empowering tools that Spiritism brings us is the awareness of our immortality, okay? So in this book, Surrender to God, Joanna tells us, the physical realm is the realm of illusion and fantasies. The spiritual realm is the one where we come from and to where we will return. So we must nurture in our souls the idea that we are traveling, that we are out of our countries. We are visiting a place and we will return to our country. So in the book, Inner Enlightenment, there is a little story that a foreigner is traveling and he looks for this very wise man because he wants to exchange some ideas and talk to him, and he heard wonders about him. So when he gets to the place where the wise man lives, the place is bare. There's like nothing in it, like barely any furniture, anything. So he's immediately disappointed. And so he looks at the wise man and he says, "Where are your belongings?" And the wise man says to him, "Where are yours?" And he says, "Well, I'm just passing by." And he said, "Me too." Me too. So there is power in this mindset. If we nurture this mindset, we will be empowered in life because we will give things the value that they have without overvaluing the things of the material things. They do have value, but the problem is that we overvalue them, okay? So it's a really cute, great story that Joanna brings to us. So awareness. Empowerment starts with awareness of who we are. And then we're going to move forward to Eckhart Tolle. He's going to help us a lot. And look what he says here. You can enjoy and honor things of this world without giving them an importance and significance that they don't have. You can participate in the dance of creation and be active without attachment to the outcome and without placing unreasonable demands upon the world. Fulfill me, make me happy, make me feel safe, tell me who I am. The world cannot give you those things. And when you no longer have such expectations, all self-created suffering comes to an end. All such suffering is due to an overvaluation of form and unawareness of the true dimension of the self. Brilliant. This man is brilliant. And this book, for me, is like a Bible. It's a Bible. Okay? Outside of Spiritism, this is one of my favorite books. And I'm gonna tell you several parts of this book today. So you can enjoy. So when you have the awareness of immortality, you can be in the world. You can enjoy the world. You can be joyful of the present moment. But you know why is this so powerful? Because one of the greatest reasons why we suffer comes from the fear of loss. We are fearful that we're going to lose people. We are fearful that we're going to lose things. We are fearful that the great moments are going to end. We are fearful that things will pass. And guess what? They will pass. They will pass. But if we understand that everything that is form, circumstances, pass, you are able to be present, to be whole, entire, in the present moment, in the experience, and come out of it feeling that that experience will be forever in you. All the experiences, all the things, all the people that come into and out of your life contribute to make who you are today. So they are forever with you. There is no loss. So it's very empowering when we have the awareness that we are just passing by. We are just passing by. And he says here, the world cannot give you those things, and when you no longer have such expectation, all self-created suffering. Self-created suffering. So life has its share of pain. Naturally. And you can equal in your mind's pain with effort. Effort brings some pain. So in order to grow, no one grows without effort. The seed under the ground, buried in darkness, makes an effort to grow towards the light, and so do we. Growth requires effort, so pain is part of the process, but self-created suffering is really what makes life miserable. And that's where our power is, the power of transforming our lives, the power of going through life in a different way with a different awareness that can help us, that can help to make things lighter, which is what the gospel of Jesus provides us, is the lightness to go through the trials and the tribulations. All right, so we have to set up goals. And in setting up the goals also, it's important that we set the right goals. So Joanna says to us, do not expect that the world will change, rather change the way you deal with the world. Become a reference point for future transformations that will take place in favor of a renewed society. So we know that well. We cannot change things outside of us, but we can change everything within us. And that's another powerful mindset that we must nurture in order to gain happiness, achieve happiness, the happiness that is allowed to us to experience in this world of trials and tribulations. All right, so Eckhart Tolle presents these tools for freedom and enlightened living. And I put this together, and I'm gonna go over these so we can understand. So he talks about achieving freedom and light, right? That's what we want. Happiness, peace, harmony, all those things that we said happiness is. Okay, so in order to get there, which is what we could not answer, it would be easier if we empower ourselves. So a couple tricks that we can put into practice to make life more bearable and joyful. The first one is called the non-resistance. And for the non-resistance, he has a little story that's called, Is That So? And so this story is about a Zen master who lived in a town in Japan. And people regarded him very, very, very highly. He was very respected. But it just happens that the daughter of his neighbor got pregnant. And when the parents questioned the girl, she said that the Zen master was the father of the kid. So in great anger, the parents rushed to the Zen master's house and told him with much shouting, they accused him of having impregnated the daughter, and that he was the father, accused him of being the father. He looks at them and he said, is that so? So news of the scandal spread throughout the town and beyond, and the master lost his reputation. That did not trouble him. Nobody went to see him anymore. He remained unmoved. When the child was born, they brought the child to him and said, you are the father, you take care of this kid. So the master took loving care of the child. A year later, the mother remorsefully confessed to the parents that he was not the father, was somebody else. So, in great distress, the parents went to see the master and apologized and asked for forgiveness. We are really sorry. We have to take the baby back. Our daughter confessed that you are not the father. He looks at them and said, is that so? Is all he would say as he handed the baby over to them. So Eckhart Tolle goes on and says, the master responds to falsehood and truth, bad news and good news, in exactly the same way. Is that so? He allows the form of the moment, good or bad, to be as it is, and so does not become a participant of the human drama. To him, there is only this moment, and this moment is as it is. And he goes on, kind of talking a little bit more about the power of this experience. He says, the baby's looked after with loving care. Bad turns into good to the power of non-resistance. The power of non-resistance. Life is going to bring you many, many different situations. Much of the suffering that we experience comes from questioning God's fairness. Why me? Why is this happening to me now? Right? So non-resistance, is that so? And going along with whatever life gives you and making the best out of it is a very powerful tool that we have. We can bridge that with spiritualism, and what would be the bridge? The bridge into faith, the bridge into surrender, the bridge into acceptance that the gospel teaches us about. The bridge, the knowledge that there is a higher power who is in control of our lives. It's called non-resistance. But moving forward, there is another aspect that he says is very important, is the aspect of non-judgment. And so, when he talks about non-judgment, he brings another little story of another wise man. All these stories about wise people, so maybe happiness has to do about becoming wise. It's a story of a wise man. This is a very, very good story, guys. A wise man who won an expensive car in the lottery. His family and friends were very happy for him and came to celebrate. Isn't it great, they said? You are so lucky. The man smiled and said, maybe. For a few weeks, he enjoyed driving the car. Then one day, a drunken driver crashed into his new car at an intersection, and he ended up in a hospital with multiple injuries. His family and friends came to him and said, that was really unfortunate. Again, the man smiled and said, maybe. While he was still in the hospital, one night there was a landslide and his house fell into the sea. Again, his friends came the next day and said, weren't you lucky to have been here in the hospital? And again he said, maybe. So, these wise men, maybe, what does that mean? It means that he refused to judge anything that happens. Instead of judging what it is, he accepts it and so enters into conscious alignment with the higher order. He enters into conscious alignment with God's will. And he talks about our human blindness. We judge, we label every single moment of our lives. I'm going through a horrible moment. Maybe. Maybe. I'm going through a wonderful moment. There's nothing wrong with my life. Maybe. Maybe you're deeper sleeping unawareness. Maybe. So this is a very powerful idea because nothing is good or bad. We just don't know. Only God knows. And we accept. And we embrace. And we don't judge. We live fully the present moment. Embrace what it is because the universe conspires for our happiness at all times. And so everything that comes for a reason. We know that in Spiritism. So no resistance, no judgment, and finally, no attachment. Let me get to the page. So for no attachment, this is a story about a king who was continuously torn between happiness and despondency. So the very tiny little things would cause him great irritation, intense reactions, disappointment, and despair. So a time came where he got tired of himself and tired of life, and who did he decide to look for? The wise man, people, the wise man, right? So he went to the wise man and he said, I want to be like you. Can you give me something that will bring balance, serenity, and wisdom into my life? I will pay you any price you ask. The wise man said, I may be able to help you, but the price is so great that your entire kingdom would not be sufficient payment for it. Therefore, it will be a gift to you if you will honor it. So the king gave his assurances, and the wise man left. A few days later, he received from the king an ornate box carved in jade. The king opened the box and found a simple gold ring inside. Some letters were inscribed on the ring. The inscription read, "These too will pass." What is the meaning for this? Asked the king. The wise man said, wear this ring always. Whatever happens, before you call it good or bad, touch this ring and read the inscription. That way you always be at peace. These too shall pass. How do we usually hear this in Spiritist lectures? When we're talking about suffering. These too shall pass. But the good things will pass as well. It's not only suffering that will pass. Everything that is formed will pass. So the importance of non-attachment to anything. So he goes on and he says, when you are detached, you gain a higher vantage point from which to view the events in your life instead of being trapped inside them. You become like the astronaut who sees the planet Earth surrounded by the vastness of space and realizes the paradoxical truth. The Earth is precious and at the same time insignificant. The paradoxes of life. Things are precious for what they bring in the moment, but when we are living from the perspective of the material realm, or when we are living in our very, very narrow spiritual perspective, because that's where we are, we have some sort of notion that we are spirits. But it is still a very, very, very narrow perspective. We see as part of our blood families. We don't see ourselves as part of this universal family. It's too above our heads. But you are. But you are. And so this blood family, that means the entire world for you and is very special to you, it's also nothing. Because you have a much bigger family. Because you're a child of God, you're not a child of your mother and your father. Because you have had many other parents, many other siblings, many other spouses. So we attach an incredible importance and value to things that are just here temporarily. Yes, they are important, but they are insignificant at the same time. It's paradoxical. But if we can understand and interject this paradox, it will give us power. We are all immigrants here. We left Brazil, most of us. And I have said this many times in many lectures. When I left Brazil, I was 24 years old. My mom told me, go, make another family for yourself. Find another grandmother, find new siblings, because you are a citizen of the universe. It didn't make the pain any less at that moment, but it has helped me. It has helped me. So when you nurture this mindset, you know, of what is real, what's really meaningful in your life, then you decrease, you have the power, you become powerful in decreasing the amount of self-suffering that we bring upon ourselves, and we bring lightness to our lives. And self-love. We're going to talk a little bit about self-love. But before, let's go with the Tao. Mastering others is strength. Mastering yourself is true power. That's what this lecture is about. It's not about, I want to bring something that was different than our ideas of power. The most powerful thing is to conquer, to master our own selves. And so going back to Eckhart Tolle, mastering yourself. Whenever you're upset about an event, a person, or a situation, the real cause is not the event, person, or situation, but a loss of true perspective that only space can provide. What is he talking about? What kind of space? The space of awareness, the space where you separate yourself from things a little bit, the space that mindfulness calls for. The space that you can open within yourself when you're in a place of non-judgment, of love and acceptance, and you say to yourself, I recognize that I'm deeply upset. And if I want to develop true power, I'm going to say, but it's not because of Maria. It's not because of what happened in my job. It's not because of anything outside of me. Right? So I need to open the space for awareness, for meditation, for reflection, for prayer, so that I can understand, you know, what part of me is hurting? Why am I hurting? You know, so I can attend to the little child that lives within each one of us and take care of that child and give that child the love that he or she needs so that he or she can grow and heal. I'm never upset for the reason I think. And with this thinking, it brings freedom from ego and opens a space for the essential to be felt, for the spirit to be felt. Okay, so he used a little bit of a different language, but he's speaking exactly about the same things that we talk about. And so in terms of self-love, I'm going to close with, there is a passage on this book. I think it's a really good passage. We talk a lot about forgiveness and self-forgiveness and the importance of that. And that's very powerful because it frees us from guilt and allow us to grow. And Joanna, I think is one of the best, really the best descriptions that I have found in this book. At the very end, she talks about, I'm not going to read entirely, but she talks about how we are children of God and God loves us and waits for us. And so she encourages us to move forward without guilt. And she reminds us that no one lives in this planet without committing mistakes. And then she says even more. She says that many times we think that our mistakes are so horrible that they don't deserve forgiveness. And that is a very disturbing idea, she says. As soon as you become aware and decide to change for better and decide to reharmonize yourself, you're taking a very important step forward in life, and that's what is expected from each one of us. She finished saying, you're gonna make many mistakes, sometimes the same mistakes, over and over and over and over, in order to get it right at some point. But when you finally get it right, you're gonna get it right with confidence, and you're gonna get it right forever. It's gonna be one of these treasures that you're going to acquire for yourself. So I think this is really important, and the translation that I did does not make justice to the text, but it's just really nice because when we talk about self-love, and she has many other books about love, and the main idea is self-love means awareness, you regret, but that's the end of it. You make a plan to rehabilitate yourself, you move forward, you give yourself another chance. Our opening reading for today was about new chances. God is so merciful, gives us so many new chances, we ought to do the same to ourselves, okay? And I will close. It's not a political statement that I am making, because my political statements I place on Facebook, but I will use this woman who I admire very deeply to touch the issue of self-love.
In my time in the White House, I can think of no better message to send to our young people in my last official remarks as First Lady. So for all the young people in this room and those who are watching, know that this country belongs to you, to all of you, from every background and walk of life. If you or your parents are immigrants, know that you are part of a proud American tradition, the infusion of new cultures, talents and ideas, generation after generation, that has made us the greatest country on earth. If your family doesn't have much money, I want you to remember that in this country, plenty of folks, including me and my husband, we started out with very little, but with a lot of hard work and a good education, anything is possible, even becoming president. That's what the American dream is all about. So the young people here and the young people out there, do not ever let anyone make you feel like you don't matter or like you don't have a place in our American story, because you do. And you have a right to be exactly who you are. But I also want to be very...
You have the right to be exactly who you are. And what I love about this speech is how she brings up the differences, and how she's highly, highly respectful of every single person, every single tradition, every single religious belief. It's a speech that's worthwhile to listen, but don't get depressed because it's kind of tough sometimes. But in any case, what it is this: you are beautiful the way you are. You have the right. I think one of the most powerful things, and let me get back to the final slide here. You know, when you look at these images, when I look at them, what I think they have in common was the power to be true to who they were, was the power to be true to the values that they held without betraying them for nothing outside of them. So when you act in line with who you are and the values that you embrace, that's very powerful. Think about it. A lot of times in life, even us in spiritism, this is something that I have worked in my whole entire life. Many people in the Spiritist movement, and I'm including myself, have had moments where we are hesitant, perhaps ashamed to speak about the values, the beliefs that mean everything to us in our lives, everything. And if you say that you're spiritual, you whisper sometimes because you're afraid of the consequences. But that's a betrayal of something. It's a self-betrayal. Now these people, this young girl, what is her power?
Speech.
She had, what is it?
Speech.
Speech. But the power, the speech is just a method in which her power was conveyed to the world.
But before that, her power came for standing up on her ground.
She stood up on her grounds. That's absolutely right. At the cost of her life, if necessary. We talk about the Christians of the first time. Paul of Tarsus, at the moment that he's going to be killed, the soldier hesitates. He says, go ahead, do your job, because I'm going back to my master, and you're going to stay in this world of misery, dealing with your consciousness every single day. There is nothing more powerful than that. These people stood their grounds. They embraced their values. And that is one great cause of suffering for all of us, is our inability to hold our own grounds, even with the things that we believe the most. So may they be a reference. When we think of power and we want to exercise our power, let's think of them. Let's think of Suzana. Let's think of Pope Francis. And may the light of the gospel guide us in the exercise of power. Thank you.